Tonight, Air Canada back in the air, but struggling to get off the ground. Why tensions are still flying high after a deal to end the strike.
What's this process been like for you?
Hell?
How long it could take to clear the backlog and get passengers reimbursed. Plus, how 5 Canadian soldiers got caught up in a Nazi salute video investigation. And a stomach-churning moment. What these food bloggers are revealing about their terrifying taste test.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. Air Canada's planes are back in the skies tonight, but it's far from business as usual. The strike that canceled 500,000 customers' flights is over after the airline and the union revealed today they've reached a tentative deal. Still, the travel chaos for thousands of Canadians continues. CTV's Heather Wright leads us off again tonight with what led to the resolution and how long it will take for operations to get back to normal.
Lines began forming inside Terminal 1 at Toronto's Pearson Airport this afternoon as Air Canada planes returned to the air.
What's this process been like for you?
Hell?
And while the union and airline reached a tentative deal early Tuesday morning, Air Canada says only 15 to 20% of its flights would be operating today, meaning more confusion for passengers.
Getting bits and pieces. They don't tend to know what's going on themselves.
Full details of the agreement, which still needs to be ratified, haven't been released, but Air Canada says its flight attendants will not only be the best paid in the country, they will also be compensated for pre- and post-flight work. With a deal reached, the airline now turns its attention to repairing its reputation.
We're deeply apologetic for what's going on. We understand the impact, the profound impact that this has had. We're going to do everything possible to get people home as quickly as we can.
Not paying flight attendants for on-the-ground work has been a common practice within the airline industry, which could now change.
This is absolutely precedent-setting.
Business professor Rick Powers expects flight attendants at other airlines will want a similar deal when their contracts are up, and adds Ottawa should rethink how it handles labor disputes. CUPE refused orders to return to work, defying a provision in the labor code the federal government has increasingly invoked to end strikes. It's not clear if the union will face any repercussions.
On one hand, you have to have legislation that has teeth, but on the other hand, you have to be fair to workers. They have to have legislation that gives them the right to collective bargaining so that it can't be just dismissed and order people back. There has to be a happy medium.
The strike has shone a light on the issue of unpaid work, with the Federal Jobs Department saying they will probe these allegations, which will take between 6 to 8 weeks.
Air Canada says it could take between 7 and 10 days for operations to be back to normal. Part of that is because most of its fleet had to be brought back to domestic airports. Those planes will have to go through safety and mechanical checks before they're cleared to fly. Omar.
Heather Wright at Toronto's Pearson Airport. While getting to their destinations is the priority for passengers, next on the list, how to get paid for out-of-pocket expenses resulting from the strike. CTV's Adrian Gobriel on what's covered.
The Kumar family got more out of their European adventure than they bargained for.
There's lots of points of frustration.
The Toronto family of 4 arrived in Europe on August 3rd. Their return flight home this past Sunday was cancelled.
Rightly or wrongly, I didn't have travel insurance on those tickets.
Carla Kumar did her due diligence and found a flight home this Wednesday on Delta and presented that as an option for Air Canada to book for her family, in accordance with Transportation Canada regulations. Air Canada refused to purchase the tickets.
You can get a refund or you can get a credit. How has it gotten to the point where we just completely have no accountability for passenger rights in Canada?
The Kumars bought 3 of their 4 tickets using their personal credit card, so they called their provider to see what type of insurance they might be entitled to. That's when they learned their specific coverage on their card didn't include this type of labor stoppage.
It has to do with the classification of how this sort of labor dispute came about.
It does change from card to card, but at best, it has a maximum attached to it. So maybe $2,500 for trip cancellation and $1,500 for trip interruption. Needless to say, not going to be enough.
Insurance specialists say anytime a portion of your trip is non-refundable, like many cruise deals, it's wise to purchase insurance from a provider, but you need to ask the right questions.
This new world we live in now, though, has so many other things: weather, government advisories, labor disruptions, they all add up that we never used to really see or incur.
Depending on where you are in the world, local laws may actually offer you some protection. If you're a Canadian in Europe stranded by Air Canada, the airline has to pony up the price of not just a new ticket, but also your food and hotel expenses. Omar.
All right, Adrian, thanks. And there are more answers to your questions about how to get reimbursed for expenses. That's on our website, ctvnews.ca. The federal government's decision to order flight attendants back on the job has put Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code under renewed scrutiny. As we mentioned, the controversial tool gives Ottawa the power to end work stoppages, but the union refused to comply. CTV's Rachel Aiello on what that could mean for future labour disruptions.
They were using this as a crutch, and over the weekend, the flight attendants made sure that that crutch snapped.
Workers' unions say they've been emboldened by flight attendants defying a federal arbitration order and still striking a deal with Air Canada. The move, while against labor law, may have just set a precedent for future disputes.
I very strongly hope that the message that this sends to employers and to our federal government is stay out of interference in collective bargaining and do not expect government to ride to your rescue.
The Liberal government has invoked Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code multiple times before, including in recent port, rail, and postage strikes. But some Labour leaders hope this instance was the last.
This section of the Canada Labour Code has got to go.
Flight attendants are denying your back to work order. QP Commission polling suggests Prime Minister Mark Carney's government may have misread the public mood in making this move.
Their decision to force flight attendants back to work so quickly actually inflamed the issue. It sort of really went against what I think the Carney brand is built on.
Asked today if she was concerned that how this strike played out may lessen the leverage of Section 107 down the line, Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu's office didn't say.
Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code that some people argue has been abused in recent years by the federal government is maybe hit a wall, and it's maybe there's going to be the brakes put on it, because the only power that directive has is when workers comply.
The question now becomes whether other unions would take a similar tact when contract talks break down. With Canada Post heading back to the bargaining table in its protracted dispute with postal workers, it may not take long to get that answer. Omar?
All right, Rachel, thank you. Turning to other news now, 5 members of the Canadian military have been suspended pending an investigation into an incident the head of the Army called deeply disturbing. In a statement, Lieutenant General Mike Wright says, "I was notified of a video containing hateful conduct involving members of the Canadian Army," adding at one point in the video, other individuals performed the Nazi salute. The military says the video was shared by a member of the public. The events happened in 2023, but the members could still face disciplinary action.
Kingston has a total loss of 12. The Adams Cove communities will be 33, Western Bay 86, Okapiko 59, and Northern Bay 13, for a total of 203.
Newfoundland and Labrador's premier listing the structures destroyed by the out-of-control Kingston fire. Firefighters have made progress because of favorable weather, but some evacuation orders and alerts remain in place.
Dangerous rip currents and rip tides. That will intensify. You can see the ocean is quite angry.
And evacuations have been ordered in North Carolina as Hurricane Erin barrels towards the state. The storm, currently a Category 3, could bring large waves and strong winds to Canada's Atlantic coast over the next few days. Donald Trump's tariff storm is hitting a major big box store. Home Depot warning customers in the U.S. that prices may now be going up. CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin on the ripple effect here in Canada.
Handy shoppers at Home Depot are bracing for their renovations to get a bit pricier. Manuel Rula's shed project was already over budget.
Well, it makes sense that this is going to rise prices.
The announcement came out of Home Depot in the U.S., where half the inventory comes from foreign suppliers, much of it subject to tariffs. Just 3 months ago, the renovation giant said it would not add that to customers' bills. But now, as operating costs rise, the price tag for some products across all its markets will go up too. Economists say those renovating on this side of the border will feel the ripple effect.
Large American retailers like Home Depot want to keep similar prices on both sides of the border. So as they raise prices in the United States, we're going to see that spill over.
The sector boomed during the pandemic, but the renovation landscape shifted in the U.S. Uncertainty and interest rates pushed Americans away from major work to focus on smaller projects and gardening. In Canada, everything from replacing a heat pump to putting in carpet has gotten slightly pricier. Statistics Canada reported a 0.9% increase in the last quarter. Still, the situation in Canada is far more favorable for renovations than in the U.S.
It's now much easier for Canadian families to afford medium-sized or even large renovation projects.
Still, renovators aren't hammering away at as many big projects in this country, too.
It's actually cheaper than it was a while ago. But because of the lack of consumer confidence, we're just not seeing that type of activities.
Still, economists say it's probably a good idea to get to that long-delayed home renovation project before prices get any higher. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Longueuil, Quebec.
And speaking of the economy, Canada's inflation rate cooled to 1.7% last month. That's down from 1.9% in June. The decline fueled by lower gas prices, but the cost of groceries was up. Economists remain split on how the number will impact the Bank of Canada's next rate decision next month. The economy will be a dominant theme when Parliament resumes next month. And for the first time since the spring election, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre will have a seat in the House of Commons after winning one of the safest ridings for Conservatives in the country. CTV's Kathy Lee on the reaction and what some Alberta voters believe could be a risk.
A triumphant return to Parliament, Pierre Poilievre clinching victory in a high-stakes by-election with a landslide 80% of the vote.
Getting to know the people in this region has been the privilege of my life.
His supporters in Camrose rejoicing.
I'm very, very pleased and happy with how it all went.
We need somebody for the West, and I think he's the guy for it.
This is a conservative country.
The decisive win for the Conservative leader was expected.
Battle River Crowfoot have traditionally elected a Conservative MP with between 70 and 85% of the vote.
The sprawling rural central Alberta riding was strategically selected after Poilievre lost his seat in the general election. Former MP Damien Couric, who won with 83% of the vote, stepped aside so his party's leader could run. Even in this safe riding, many wondered if he could match his predecessor's support.
I was very surprised that Mr. Poilievre would get 80%. I thought it was going to be a little bit less.
No, I'm not surprised at all.
Strong backing aside, some say Poilievre parachuted in and may not prioritize local concerns in Ottawa.
I'm very disappointed and shocked. I thought Albertans were smarter. He'll never be back here unless he has to show up for something.
Voter turnout was lower compared to the general election, which was expected, but turnout was higher compared to other by-elections. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Camrose.
And with more on what this all means, CTV's chief political correspondent Vashi Kapelas joins us now. Vashi, the House is back in session September 15th. How does Pierre Poilievre keep the Prime Minister accountable in question period while also presenting a united front in the face of Donald Trump's trade war?
It's a great question, Omar, and certainly a balancing act that all opposition parties and opposition leaders are going to have to face. However, that said, many people in and around Mr. Poilievre, whom I've spoken with, have actually looked or are looking at the dispute with Donald Trump as a potential opening for them. They see a vulnerability in what they would characterize as a more elbows down approach when it comes to, for example, counter tariffs from the Liberals, and they plan to attack that front and center during the fall if it remains.
Now, looking ahead to the January leadership review, publicly, the Tory caucus is behind Pierre Poilievre, but what are you hearing privately?
Well, privately, Omar, they're telling me a couple of things. First of all, yes, they are backing him. They do take the by-election win, the decisive nature of it, as a good sign. And they are largely unsure at this point who would even replace him. But bigger picture, they want to see some success, public opinion polling-wise, in the fall. Most specifically, when he gets back in the House of Commons, are they able to take some sliding public opinion polling numbers and turn them around and become more competitive with the Liberals in that vein? That ultimately will be a major test for the leader come the fall and in the House of Commons, and will probably inform how party members feel when he faces that leadership review in January, Omar.
All right, Vashi, thank you. And another political development tonight. After leading the Green Party through 5 federal elections, Elizabeth May says she will step down before the next election.
My main announcement was to our membership, be ready for the idea that I will not be leading us into the next federal election, but I'm not going anywhere for now.
The longtime representative of Saanich Gulf Islands, BC, is currently the only elected Green MP. She intends to stay on as an MP and leader until there's a leadership race. The White House is saying tonight that Vladimir Putin has agreed to meet face-to-face with Volodymyr Zelensky. The Trump administration also revealing today that any peace deal will not include American boots on the ground. CTV's Judy Trin is in Washington with more on what role Canada might play.
I think we're going to have a successful talk today. Yeah.
During the summit with Ukraine's president and European leaders, U.S. President Donald Trump stepped away for a phone call with Russia's president. The White House says that planted the seed for a face-to-face meeting between enemies.
President Trump spoke with President Putin by phone, and he agreed to begin the next phase of the peace process, a meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky.
When and where that meeting will take place hasn't been determined, but the issue of security guarantees for Ukraine will be on the agenda. The Trump administration says it may send fighter jets, but it won't send troops to keep the peace.
The president has definitively stated U.S. boots will not be on the ground in Ukraine, but we can certainly help in the coordination and perhaps provide other means of security guarantees to our European allies.
That could leave the responsibility of ensuring Russia doesn't invade again to the 31 countries of the so-called Coalition of the Willing. After participating in a video conference with allies, Prime Minister Mark Carney's office said coalition presence was discussed, and Carney expressed that Canada is prepared to participate to support peace when the time comes, in coordination with allies. But analysts say Putin is likely to block the participation of NATO members.
Putin would not be happy if there were NATO troops on the ground because he doesn't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. He's made that very clear.
Discussing security guarantees requires that Zelensky and Putin meet. But without a ceasefire, Russia is free to continue its attacks. Omar.
Judy, thank you. Coming up, the frightening close call. What these food bloggers are saying after they walked away from a horrifying crash. Incredible video now of a food review that turned into a near-death dining experience. This car crashed, sending two food bloggers flying inside a Houston restaurant. Police say the driver thought her SUV was in park, and once she took her foot off the brake, the car barreled into the restaurant. The pair somehow walked away from the jaw-dropping moment with only minor cuts and bruises.
I thought we were going to die. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is our last moment.
And debris flew through the air after a ruptured gas line exploded in Wilmington, North Carolina. 3 firefighters were injured. Back in this country, the federal government is pledging to tackle the housing crisis and build 500,000 homes per year at a speed and scale not seen since the Second World War. CTV's Maria Saru is tracking efforts to break new ground in Prince Edward Island.
A $20 million federal loan will help build 60 new units at this site, a small step towards the much larger goal of 500,000 new homes every year. That means doubling the national rate of building.
Not exclusively affordable housing or deeply affordable, but coming in below median incomes, which is what's critical.
The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says the country needs up to 480,000 home starts annually to restore pre-pandemic affordability. But the national agency projects a slowdown later this year. And experts say higher land and construction costs, plus tariffs on steel, are squeezing developers.
I think the challenge is for the government just to tread water, let alone, experience a big increase in housing starts.
Here in PEI, housing starts reached a record last year, and the province is building faster than the national average. But to meet Canada's mark, the island will have to surpass historic highs and maintain that. Housing Minister Gregor Robertson says the way forward is to build homes in factories.
That's not just entire homes like modular homes, but it's panels, it's kitchen and bath pods. We're also looking at reducing the development charges across the country.
The Conservatives have criticized Carney's plan and have proposed instead to speed up permits and cut taxes for builders and buyers.
And a housing crisis worsens as builders can't afford to build and buyers can't afford to buy.
The federal government is creating a new entity called Build Canada Homes. The intent is to provide financing for affordable home builders to scale up supply fast. Maria Saru, CTV News, Stratford, Prince Edward Island.
Still ahead, why this historic church is on the move. A remarkable sight today in northern Sweden, where a 113-year-old church was lifted from its foundation and moved down a highway. The historic church is being relocated to avoid being swallowed by the world's largest underground iron ore mine. The mine operator spent the last year widening the road to make the move possible as the church travels 5 kilometers to its new home. Drivers in Abbotsford, BC were confronted by a bull on the loose that escaped from a trailer. Police briefly shut down the highway in both directions as the animal roamed free. A local vet was called in to tranquilize the bull, and the owners brought it home safely. Still ahead, reaching for a prize in the skies. How work and play are about to collide in a thrilling Canadian competition. In the world of professional tree climbing, only one person truly comes out on top. Dozens of peak performers are gearing up to scale the championship ladder in Saskatchewan for a shot at the ultimate crown. Here's CTV's Alison Bamford.
Hard work under a hot summer sun. It's a short climb, 20 feet up, to cut down this dead spruce, a job that sometimes takes James Luchuk 85 feet off the ground.
Not everybody gets to kind of see that view every day, and it's an accomplishment when you do.
Now the professional arborist is chasing a new accomplishment, branching out to compete at his first prairie tree climbing championship. At the root of it, climbers scale up trees as fast as they can, participating in 5 different events that test their strength, agility, and techniques.
Competition is based a lot around just working situations.
Now in a few days, the trees in Kinsman Park will be filled with competitors from across the prairies. 45 of them trying to climb their way to the top of the podium in hopes of booking a ticket to the International Championship next fall. Many are training just by doing their jobs.
It's definitely strenuous. You're always constantly thinking. You basically get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
It's a feeling that's always worth it once the job is done.
Not everybody does this kind of work, but I love it. Once you kind of get to that top where you get to remove that top, you kind of get an exhilarance.
And Luchuk hopes to feel the same rush on the podium. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Definitely not for the faint of heart. That's a snapshot of this Tuesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night, and see you tomorrow.